Hello, I'm Alan. Welcome to the Guitar Shack. I've been working on a lot of Fenders lately with restorations on some tellies and Strats, and I do have a couple more Strats coming up soon. But I wanted to switch channel a little bit and talk about Epiphones for the next two or three videos because I've got quite a few in at the moment, and it's always a good thing to talk about. So my history with Epiphones, like many people, I guess, is that it was my first good quality electric guitar that I bought back in, I think it was the late 90s or the very early 2000s, and I bought an Epiphone Dot, which was the 335 copy, and I loved it. It played beautifully, it was very nicely made. It was a big upgrade on the Strat copy that I had at the time, although that turned out to have actually been quite a decent guitar in retrospect. Um, and I had that and played that alongside my first Telecaster, which I bought in 2007, which was a USA model. And even though I had my, dream guitar, a USA Tele, I did keep going back to the Epiphone because I loved the sound of the twin humbuckers and I loved the construction and the way it played. So I then made the leap of trading both those guitars plus a PRS SE for my first Gibson, which was an ES339. And the story of that 339, which was an absolutely gorgeous guitar, will lead me into what today's video is about, which is I have an Epiphone 339 here that I'm going to talk a little bit about, along with its big brother, an Epiphone 335. And these are both almost new. I bought them from a gentleman who had bought them both new a couple of years back, and then subsequently had also bought a bunch of brand new Gibson Les Pauls. And as a result, the Epiphones didn't get played much, so I took them off his hands, and I'll be doing my usual clean up, set up, and get ready for sale with those two. Um, but the other things that I've got in at the moment are, which is quite interesting, I think, is I've got this lovely old 1970s um, Epiphone FT150 Bard, which is, as you can see, is a dreadnought, and it's got a nice tone to it. It's beautifully finished. It's got really nice appointments with all the binding and the inlays and so on, but it's in dire need of a fret job. And frankly, it's not worth much. It's an old 70s Epiphone, so it's a really cool old guitar that I really like. But I'm going to do a fret job on it, a refret, and restore it, and then probably keep it in my collection because it's worth buttons, but it's just a nice old thing. And then the final one is going to be this Epiphone Les Paul Standard, which is an early one with what's colloquially known as the mudbuckers. So I'll be doing a complete strip down of that. I'll be putting new pickups in it. I'll be putting in more modern Epiphone Pro buckers, and then I'll be putting in a good quality 50s wiring, proper harness in it. And then that might be the Les Paul that I buy that I finally keep. We shall see. But that's the collection as they stand at the moment. And then the others in there are my sort of long term keepers, really. So this one is a keeper. It's my muck about with try stuff on kind of guitar. So I bought it as a Hulk off eBay, just the body, nothing else on it, and it had a neck break, as many of these do, and as part of the repair of that, it had a new fretboard fitted and refretted, and that's why it's got these larger style block inlays, which are like a 355 style fretboard on a 335 style guitar. And to that, I've rewired it. I've added an X trem, which is an imported US GFS product, which fits straight on the normal mountings for the tailpiece, which is an interesting option on a Les Paul and 335 style guitar. And then it's got pro buckers in it. So I mess around with that. I used it to learn how to wire up a 335. I've done a lot of fretwork on it, a bit of refinishing work, so it's a bit of a muck, but it's fun. And then I've got my two kind of guitars for life, really. So these are my favourite Epiphones. So I've got this black Sheraton, Sheraton Pro with the Pro Buckers, to which I've added a Bigsby, which is just my go-to electric guitar for everything when I don't feel Fenderish. And then my EJ200. So this is the early model with the full-sized body and no electronics. So I've added a Takamine sound hole pickup, but I don't use it very often. There's usually this is a pull it out and belt out big strummy chords at a parties kind of guitar. So it's seen some action. It's a lovely old thing. So enough rambling about these. I'm going to get into talking about the 335, the 339, how they're similar, how they're different, and then what I do to what are pretty much new guitars to make them play as well as they can do. It can be a bit confusing as to how the Epiphone range fits together, and in particular, what's the point of the 339 when you've got the 335. But to me, it's about size and comfort and playability. So if you look at a 335, which everybody knows and loves, it's a big beast if you are used to playing something like a Strat or a Telly or a Les Paul. As you can see here, it's significantly bigger than the Les Paul. It's not quite as big, but it's not far off the top size of the J200, although obviously it's a lot thinner. So it's a big old beast, and some people just can't get round to that. So when you introduce the 339 into the equation, you can see straight away, well, hopefully from this, that effectively it's a Les Paul sized 335. And then apart from the size, in all other respects, it is the same build, the same specs generally as a 335, same scale length, same headstock. I think we'll see it's got the same pickups, same hardware, and same control configuration, but it's in the smaller size, but as pretty much the same size as a Les Paul. And that makes it quite an interesting sort of mid-range between the two for a lot of people. And I think it's sold quite consistently well since it was introduced in the 2010s, I think it was at some time. And it was one of the reasons why I bought my first one, which was the Gibson, um, because I just liked the fit of it, and I've always liked them since. So if we take a look at these up close, you can't see it because of the perspective, but if I, with some degree of danger, put these on their side in front of each other, you can see, hopefully, quite clearly that with the front, with the horns lined up, the body shape of the 335 is substantially bigger. Um, but that's pretty much the only thing which is different between them. So if I just run through it, first thing is they've got the same headstock. So this was the inspired by Gibson 2021 upgrade was applied to both of these guitars. That's a 2022 and that's a 2023, I think. Um, so this headstock shape was introduced, I think, as a bit of a nod towards Gibson. It's smaller than what was previously on these, and it was seen as a kind of halfway house towards a Gibson open book headstock at the top. What wasn't, I think, as widely realised is that this headstock shape is actually an original Epiphone shape known as the Kalamazoo headstock. And this used to be found on early casinos, for example, in the early 60s. And in fact, it's exactly the same headstock shape as is on the mid 70s FT150 acoustic that I've got hanging up behind me. That's a Japanese built 1970s model. So it is actually a sort of correct Epiphone uh, style headstock, not just a Gibson rip-off. The neck is identical on both of them. So as always, 24 3/4 inch scale length, 12-inch radius, C-shaped profile, and Indian laurel board on both of them. So the 335 is what's known as raspberry iced tea. And this was a new finish that came out with the launch of the Inspired by Gibson in 2021. I actually pre-ordered one identical to this at the time, and really liked that guitar. So it's got a sort of reddish burst, which extends into the Mickey Mouse ears, as they call them, which is unusual on a 335 style guitar. And as you can see, it's got a really nice flamed maple top. So it's a really lovely looking guitar. And it's got the block inlays as well, which just finishes off a 335 for me. I'm not sure whether you can get the block inlays in any models on the 339 body shape. It wouldn't surprise me. I just don't think I've seen one. Um, and I actually did a video of that original 335 a couple of years ago because I got another one, which was the blue burst colour, which was in all other aspects identical, and I'd bought it as liquidated shop stock, so it was brand new from the factory. So I did a video comparing mine, which had been fully set up, with that one, to show the kind of work that you generally need to do with one of these to get it to play its best, and that's what I'm going to be doing with these two today. Now, I was told by the seller that I think the I think the 339 had actually been professionally set up. So let's see whether that's the case, whether there's any difference between the two, and then I'll see where I can take them to. So we'll take a wee look at the 339 first of all and see what we've got. So as received, this has got set up currently with 13 thousandths of neck relief, which is about double what it should be. So that's clearly an easy job to fix. Um, that is so high that it makes the action pretty much irrelevant, but let's just check it anyway to see what we've got. Interestingly, the action at the 12th fret on the high E is 1.37, which is relatively low for a bass E string, and 1.75 on the high E string, which is a crazy setup. 1.58, 1.7, 1.32. So there's something weird going on with this, but we'll need to sort out. But basically, the action's all over the place. Yeah, it's definitely 1.4. So that is either something weird with the bridge, which isn't likely to be the case. So it's more than likely to be the nut slots are bringing it really high. And 26, 16.5. No, sorry, that's hadn't zeroed. 17, 18, 16.5, 22.5. So 21. So these are actually not terrible. There's a couple of them need to come down a little bit, but it needs some work done on the nut. And the fret ends could be better. They're not brilliant. They're not terrible, but I can feel them, and that's just one of my bugbears. So they need to be addressed. I can actually see on some of them they're a little bit rough the way they've been dressed. So this is definitely going to benefit from a full setup, no question about it. Okay, so onto the 335. As you can see, it's a lot bigger. It swamps me a little bit, but I still love them. So we've got, let's check the neck relief. So this one comes in at 11, which is also a bit generous. I generally in one of these I'd stick it around about 8, something like that. See what it will take. But that's an easy adjustment that anyone can make anytime. That's not really a massive setup issue. So let's have a look at the current action. So we've got 1.5, 1.3, 1.29, 1.5, 1.2, 1.37. So that's a bit all over the place, but it does actually feel decent and low. Could be tidied up. It's not buzzing anywhere, obviously. So, yeah, set up for this. Fret ends. I'm not going to do a sock test because everyone does a sock test, but this one's better. It just feels more consistent. They are, I might do a close up on this. They are cut flush, they are beveled, but they're only very slightly rounded over from the beveling, which is why they don't feel as soft as I think they should do. So I can improve those. I think that's more, I'll see if any of them actually stick out too much, but I think it'll be a light dressing and then a shaping, just softening up the edges. We'll check all the frets for level once the strings are off and see how those go. That might have, I'm going to guess that both of them will have about 5 high frets. They generally, I find with Epiphones, it's the fretwork. Because let's face it, this is a really nice, high quality guitar for street price of round about 500 quid. And by the time you've had shipping, importers' fees, uh, margins of the distributor as well as the builder and the dealer, uh, you know, this is not a high cost guitar out of the factory. So there's only so much they're going to be able to do in terms of finishing the frets. So I don't judge Epiphones at all for the fact that they all need a fret job. I just see it as part of the fact that you're buying the guitar as it is. They play nicely enough as they are, but to make them play as well as they can, they almost all need a fret crown and polish, a fret level crown and polish. It just transforms them. You get them really nice. You can set them. I like to set them at a level where you can get the action nice and low. For me, I tend to set my guitars at 1.5 at the high, at the low E at the 12th fret, down to 1.25, because on the basis that that is, not insanely low, but it's comfortably low. It plays nicely, and it's easy to raise it if you want something that's a bit more, got a bit more digging in, or a bit you're more focused on tone than playability. Everybody's different in what they like, but I go on the basis that if I get it playing well at a low action, then you can tweak it to your heart's content, and it's always going to play as well at a higher action too. So that's what I try to do with them, and that's why I go to the full fret job approach with Epiphones, but you don't have to. I mean, they do play nicely as they are. So let's see. I'll get the strings off them both, get into it. Sorry, I'll just check the nut slots as well. So 17, 27, 20, 28, 31. Okay, so again, those are all over the place. That's another thing which they'll cut them reasonably generously so that they're not going to buzz. But if I put a tuner on this, every one of those notes up in the first two or three frets is going to be sharp because the nut slots are just too high. And again, it takes a bit of time and patience to bring them down without bringing them down too much. So again, taking the time to do that to any new Epiphone is going to transform it from a playability point of view. So that's what's going to happen to these two. So that's it stripped down. So moment of truth, having a look up close. Top of the body is immaculate. No issues there. Just swap her over and have a look at the back. Again, don't see any scratches or dents. The finish is good all the way around. You can really see the flame on the back. It's really lovely finish. Back of the neck is good, and you know, this is a guitar that really hasn't been played much. Can't see any chips or dinks on the headstock. The nut's in good shape, and the frets, yeah, there's a tiny little bit of wear you could see but not feel. So this is really going to depend on whether it needs a fret job from a level point of view. It certainly doesn't have any wear on it. So one thing that is critical to look at on these guitars is the neck joint and whether there's any damage or cracks. And this is why you check, because on this one, as you can see, we've got this little crack there, which is 1 centimetre or so, just running from the corner of where the finish stops and the nut begins. So just to try and show you this up close, struggling a little bit with the light, but the corner of the nut here is chipped slightly, and that chipping, the finish stops right up against the nut, and that chipping there, I think, has also caused this little finish crack there. I'm pretty certain that it doesn't go any deeper than the finish, and I don't know whether the nut itself has been replaced or whether this was a factory flaw. But it's one of those ones where if I bought this guitar new and it had that, I would return it. If, on the other hand, I bought it second hand, I'd be absolutely fine with it, as long as the price reflected the fact that there is a flaw in the finish. So that's interesting, isn't it? So I've had a look at every other Epiphone that I've got, and they've all got the nut fitted after the finish, in the same way as this has. So to me, I don't think this has been replaced. I think either that's been a factory flaw, although I definitely didn't spot it when I bought the guitar, although that could just be on me, or it's taken a knock at some point. And given the fact that I've moved house and this has been with me for 6 months or so, and it's been moved around a few times, that's entirely possible. So that's the only flaw I can find on this guitar. Since I'll probably keep this one, because since I love the finish, then it really doesn't matter. It's purely cosmetic. It's just a little bit annoying because obviously if I do decide to sell this, I'll need to obviously declare that and discount for that, which means that whatever work I put into this guitar, I'm probably not going to get the value of that time back when I sell it, which is fine. You win some, you lose some. But either way, it's a salutary lesson on just worth checking in the same way as you would check, you know, a Telecaster or a Stratocaster. You would check the neck pockets, because again, you've got a stress point on the finish where there's a kind of angle in the finish, and any kind of movement, you quite often get these little cracks. And again, in a Fender, it's just a crack in the poly. It's nothing to worry about. And that's exactly the same here. This is a thick poly finish. And at some point, it's just taken a wee, doesn't take much to just give it a little crack. So there we have it. Okay, moving on then, let's check the frets. So the trusty fret rocker comes out. So here we go with the fretboard of shame. So I've marked where it rocks. So we've got rocks at both ends of the fourth. the 6th, the 7th, the 9th. I've got a little bit up on the, what's that, the 15th, 17th, and then again up at the 21st, and that's all the way along. So with this number of rocks, that's almost certainly a fret job. I'll just do the old feeler gauge test on them first of all, because that can sometimes save you a fret job, just to see whether they're sitting high, but a relatively thin feeler gauge is not going underneath them, so these aren't sitting proud, that can be just tapped in. So this will be getting a full level crown and polish. Same process then with the 339. I'll just get this stripped down, but before we do that, I'll just take a moment to admire the beauty of the Pelham Blue. So that's all stripped down. Same thing, let's have a look around the body. No chips, marks. The body is very clean. As you would hope. So, same thing around the back. So, no visible damage. All the edges are good, no chipping, no dents. The back itself is immaculate, there's no buckle rash. And then the neck, again, is fine. The other thing that I've spotted now, which I hadn't spotted before, is that this has got Grover tuners, whereas the 335 has got the tulip style cloisons. Doing the neck test. No issue here, but the interesting thing to note on this one is that the nut, which again I'm sure is factory installed, is just slightly crooked. It's just tipped slightly forward, which won't make any difference whatsoever as long as it's solidly attached. But again, it's just the kind of, this is the difference in quality control that you're getting with a cheaply produced and relatively cheaply sold mid-price guitar as opposed to a top-end Gibson, which is in many respects pretty much identical. That's where the difference lies. And then looking at the other side, we have got about a millimetre, maybe 2 millimetres, I'm not sure you can even see it, but just the start of a tiny little finish crack there in the same place on the corner. And again, it's at the same place where, is it not installation? Is it taking a knock? Is it just the fact that the finish is there? But it's so small and it's just in the finish. It's definitely not an issue, but it's just slightly annoying. And that seems to be a factory installed nut. So, yeah. I didn't feel the need to make you sit through me running my fret rocker over this one, but I have done. And the fretboard of shame test was going very well up until we hit the 15th fret. And then after that, we've got 3 high frets, which is not unexpected. It's just a shame because everything down below the 12th, in fact, below the 14th was doing really well. Now, the interesting thing about these is it's only 3 frets, but they're quite close. And I could just spot level them, and that would probably might be quicker. But sometimes when you spot level, particularly when all clustered down at one end, you find yourself kind of chasing them around the fretboard. There is separation, so I'm not doing one next to the other. But to be honest, I think I'll just level them on. It's the easiest, quickest way to get them absolutely dead level. No question about it. And then it's quick enough to just crown and polish them. The thing that is different in this one though is that you can see, I think hopefully if the camera will focus on it close up, you can see that some of these fret ends are just a little bit ragged. And if you can see it, you can definitely feel it. I mean, that one, if I run my finger to it, it actually catches. So these fret ends need more work, ironically, than the frets themselves from a leveling point of view. But either way, this is it's Epiphone fretwork, and it's what you would expect. Now, one of the upgrades on these, inspired by Gibson ones, as I said, was the introduction of better quality electronics. So I can't show you the CTS pots, but I can assure you that they're in there. And you can feel that they are nice and smooth with just a nice amount of resistance to feel good, but not to be sticky. And the other thing is nice clicky switches. Anyone who's had some of the older Epiphones knows that they were basically made of tin foil and they were shit, and they used to regularly fail. Whereas these new ones, only inspired by Gibson ones, seem to be a lot better. They're Epiphone branded, and they're just made of better quality material. So that's definitely an upgrade. So that's these two ready to go downstairs for the fret job. So you'll note that I've dropped the pickups right down into their rings and then taped them off to make sure that we don't get any metal shavings in there from the fretwork. And then the finish on the front of the guitars themselves will also be taped off or shielded with paper to make sure that we don't get any damage to the finish. So the pickups will be hidden by that, so extra secure. So that's the 335 back together. I'm going to give it a quick setup and then we'll get on with the 339. I won't make you sit through the entire process for the 339 because it is exactly the same, but I'll just time lapse it, give you a quick sprint through. Right, let's see what we've got then from a setup point of view. So this is off a completely straight neck for the fret job, and that brings me in at 9 thou, which is pretty much. So that's sort of okay on one of these. Might give it a little tweak, but I'll see how we get on first. I'm pretty low action at the moment. So I can afford to come up. So the great advantage of this kind of bridge is that there's only two adjustments. See where that takes us. A little bit more. This is 1.52 mil and 1.07. It's a bit low. One 1.23. Just get it back to tune. So that's roughly set up. The next things I'm going to do is I'm going to flatten the neck a little bit because I want to get the neck to the straightest that it's likely to be and then set the nut slots for that, because that then means that if you ever raise the action or raise the neck relief again, give it more relief, it means that the nut slots will be fine. If you set the nut slots with it too much relief in it, then if you flatten it out, your nut slots might be too low. So it's just a kind of sequencing thing. So I'm going to do that, but basically this is now good to go. Do that, do the full setup. I'm going to crack on with the 339. I'll do it in time lapse so you don't have to sit through it, and then we'll come back when they're both ready. Right, this is now dead flat, just for an experiment. I'm not going to leave it there, but let's see what it does. See how it plays. Too buzzy there. Not doable, but it was okay at about 3. So let's set it for 3, 3 or 4, and then I'm going to check the nut slots, and then I'm going to bring it back up to what I think is about 8 is about right for one of these. Quite awkward getting the truss rod key in just for the angle on this thing. Right, that's it at 3. So let's see how that plays. I'm looking for the lowest point of playability, really. So that's no buzzing, which is interesting. So that's at 3 thou. And that's giving me 1.26 and 0.95. So I'm going to say that this is no buzzing. It's not very nice, but if you're into shredding, or if you're into very low action, then this, as it stands at 3 thou, neck relief is sitting at just under a millimetre on the high E at the 12th and 1.25 at the low E at the 12th. That's too low, but it's a good baseline. So I know that this guitar has got the capability to be set up the way that anyone wants, is the short answer. So that's enough with that. Let's just check, see what the nut slots are like when it's like this. So that's given me 17 thou, 16 and a half thou. I'm looking for between 20 and 15, really. 15's the lowest I would want to go, particularly in the high strings. 20, 19.5, that's 13.5 on the high E, and 15. So those nut slots are actually okay at this level. So that's fine. I know that this is a decent setup. I'm now going to put it where I want it to be, which is 8th hour relief and 1.5 and 1.25. I'm now going to set the intonation and then we're done. So I found the issue with the nut, which was that it had pretty much just come loose. Um, and I think it's come off in the past. It's a decent enough nut. It's a new bone nut, Graphtec one. So these are pretty much the same as bone, but they are synthetic and they're self-lubricating, so it doesn't need to be changed. But what you can see on the bottom is that there is blobs of glue, and there's also blobs of glue on the nut slot itself. So whether that wasn't properly spread out or not, but it just wasn't sitting flush. So I will trim all that out, clean it out, and then get it sitting flush, and I'll reattach the nut, and then that'll solve that problem. Okay, moment of truth. So I'm going to just play through some basic chords and a few bits and pieces. I'll do it on both guitars. I'll play it first clean and then I'll put a little bit of drive in it just so you get to see how it sounds. And I'll try and remember to play the same pieces on both. The setup's fairly basic. I'm directly into a Fender Mustang modeling amp, GT40 it is, with then connected into the computer. It's got a twin reverb model on it and it's got a little bit of reverb. So I'll play through neck, then middle, then bridge, and then I'll just follow that sequence through, and then you will have to hear me jabbering on. I'm having some problems with my lapel mic and interacting with the guitar setup, so you'll be happy to know I'm going to switch myself off. So that's what it sounds like. And here's a wee nod to the colour scheme. Okay, so there's some sounds. Hopefully it gives you a flavour of it, although I appreciate my playing isn't necessarily the most instructive in terms of the full capabilities of these guitars. Um, but anyway, there's not much difference between them, if anything. I can't really hear the difference. I think they both sound great. I just love the sound of a semi-acoustic, and I think Epiphone, these are really great guitars. They're beautifully made. As long as you do a setup on them and give them the fret rest that they deserve, they're a lot of bang for your buck, and they are great guitar to have in your arsenal, no matter what else you play. Everybody needs a 335 or a 339. Okay, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed that, and thanks for putting up with my rambling for the best part of an hour as usual. If you did enjoy it, then please do like and subscribe. It helps the channel. More people can find my ramblings. And I think I'll probably put both of these up for sale on Reverb and see what happens. So if you want to have a look on my Reverb shop in the next few days, if you are interested, or if you just want to drop me a note through this channel, that'll be fine. We'll have a chat. Okay, thanks for watching and hope to see you back in the shack soon.